if this verse means that he's upset that Israel is miserable, then that's a contradiction. Could be one of these quick little contradictions. Hey folks, welcome to Joel Reads Bible. I'm Joel and I read Bibles so that you don't have to, and we're reading the book of Judges right now, and it's been fun. And I think we're going to see the end of the last story, which if you haven't watched it, feel free to watch the last chapter. It was okay. The chapter 8 and chapter 7, those are fun. Chapter 6 is good. And then chapter 9, it's fine. I should be saying like they're all great. They're all must-watch. Well, they're all must-watches just because it's like you got to read the whole Bible. You got to see the whole Bible just so that you can see how stupid every single part of it is so that people can't trick you into being like, no, the cool thing is the part you missed. But anyway, we're going to read chapter 10, and if you stick around to the end of the chapter, I'll tell you what I loved about the chapter and, of course, also, too, what I loathed about the chapter. So stick around, and let's get right into it. Chapter 10. After Abimelech, Tola the son of Puah, the son of Dodo, a man of Issachar, arose to save Israel. He lived in Shamir in the hill country of Ephraim. He judged Israel 23 years and died and was buried in Shamir. That was quick. Wow. Well, thanks for joining me. Imagine that was the whole chapter. It kind of feels like it is kind of, but I think they're just like giving like this happens and they save them and it's really quick. One thing that this did illustrate here that I hadn't noticed before, but when we get a savior, it tells us the savior arose and then saved the day. This is how they saved the day. And then they go through it. But then when they're a baddie, they're like, and then there was this guy. We don't know what's going to happen. Just wait and see, and it's Abimelech. And we know that Abimelech isn't going to be a good guy because his mom was a concubine, You learn that. So that's why Ishmael wasn't a good guy. But then all bets are off with the 12 tribes of Israel because half of them are children of concubines. So it's like, are concubine good or bad? We don't know. It's not clear. Probably the good tribes of Israel are going to end up being the ones that weren't born of concubines. It'd be something that's worth kind of like keeping an eye on. Was Levi the son of a concubine or the son of one of the wives? I'm going to guess not concubine, but I could be wrong. Is Judah concubine or not concubine? Benjamin's not concubine. We know that. Joseph's not concubine. We know that. So fun sort of a thing to look into sometime, just to guess which of the tribes are going to be the bad ones versus the good ones. Anyway, I'm getting bogged down with all this concubine, non-concubine stuff, and that's what the Bible will do to you. It'll drive you crazy with concubine, non-concubine type of conversations. After him, Jair, the Gileadite, arose. He judged Israel 22 years. He had 30 sons who rode on 30 donkey colts. They had 30 cities, which are called Havoth Jair to this day, probably not, which are in the land of Gilead. Jair died and was buried in, come on. That's interesting. This is a little bit of like color. I'm going to call it like color, adding a little color into the story. 30 donkey colts, cool. A little bit of color. It's also what we observed a few chapters ago. It just like dawned on me that these are all judges because the book's called Judges and they judge Israel for a little bit. But Abimelech was called a king. So there's a difference between a king and a judge. These guys are judges. We like the judges. We don't like the king. The bad guys are kings, the good guys are judges. It just seems like that's kind of the children of Israel again did what was evil in Yahweh's sight and served the Baals and Ashtaroth, the gods of Syria, the gods of Sidon, the gods of Moab, the gods of the children of Ammon, and the gods of the Philistines. They abandoned Yahweh and didn't serve him. I wonder what's going to happen. Oh, there it is. Yahweh's anger burned against Israel, and he sold them into the hand of the Philistines and into the hand of the children of Ammon. They troubled and oppressed the children of Israel that year. 1 year? For 18 years. Oh, they oppressed all the children of Israel that were beyond the Jordan in the land of the Amorites, which is in Gilead. The children of Ammon passed over the Jordan to fight also against Judah and against Benjamin and against the house of Ephraim, so that Israel was very distressed. The children of Israel cried to Yahweh, saying, "We have sinned against you, even because we have forsaken our God and have served the Baals." We've served the Baals and we were wrong. Why have we been serving these Baals? We should let the Baals be. Don't serve the Baals. So this is just getting boring now, because it's like the same thing every time. It's the same sort of thing. What a mess, because these people are serving Baals. Yahweh said to the children of Israel, "Didn't I save you from the Egyptians and from the Amorites, from the children of Ammon, and from the Philistines, the Sidonians also, and the Amalekites? And the Ammonites oppressed you, and you cried to me, and I saved you out of their hand. Yet you have forsaken me, and served other gods. Therefore I will save you no more. Go and cry to the gods which you have chosen. Let them save you in your time of distress." To be fair, Yahweh, you half did your job. Yeah, you half did it. You didn't quite do the full-on ending of all the baddies. Remember, we couldn't quite drive out the Canaanites, remember? They were they're still living with us, and that's why they keep dragging us off to worship other gods. You realize that that's probably what's being described here. You told us that a few chapters ago, that the Israelites would start worshiping other gods because they still have Canaanites there. And the reason why you're leaving the Canaanites there was because they were bad, but they also fought. This is getting so convoluted. You know that the Canaanites being around is going to make these stiff-necked, particular ancient peoples, they're going to make them worship other gods. You know that that's the case. Why not just wipe the baddies off the face of the planet? Which I don't know why they're pulling them to worship other gods. I mean, the Midianites, for instance, they believed in Yahweh. They thought Yahweh was the best. They were scared of him. So why are they worshiping other gods? Let me guess. You hardened their heart. That's another part of the story here in the narrative, which makes it so much more confusing, is that you're the one that's causing people to have the hard hearts that are causing them to be the bad guys that are making your Hebrew people worship the other gods. So now you have to torture them. You're doing all this stuff. It's all your fault. You're the bad guy. You're the only villain. These are just pawns. These are marionettes that you're putting through all of this stuff. There's only one bad guy in the Bible, and it is Yahweh. The children of Israel said to Yahweh, "We have sinned, probably. It's probably our fault. What do you want us to say? We have sinned. Do to us whatever seems good to you. You're going to do it anyway, so only deliver us, please, today." Do whatever seems right. If you'll deliver, we prefer if you delivered us. They put away the foreign gods from among them and served Yahweh. And his soul was grieved for the misery of Israel. And his soul was grieved for the misery of Israel. What's that supposed to mean? This is going to be a contradiction. If this is true, was Yahweh grieved because Israel felt bad? If we go all the way back to Deuteronomy 28, verse 63, we will see that Yahweh actually likes seeing Israel suffer for their sins. If this verse means that he's upset that Israel is miserable, then that's a contradiction. Could be one of these quick little contradictions. Then the children of Ammon were gathered together and encamped in Gilead. The children of Israel assembled themselves together. Assembled! And encamped in Mizpah. The people, the princes of Gilead, said to one another, "Who is this man who will begin to fight against the children of Ammon? He shall be head over all the inhabitants of Gilead." Who is it? Who is it? Is there a new man? Is there a new judge? Is there a new hero? going to come and destroy the children of Ammon and lead Gilead? Interesting. That's probably going to show up in chapter 11. But before that, we're going to have to do a recap of the last 10 chapters. Listen, what did I love about this chapter? What's not to love? It was quick. 17 verses, not bad. I like a fast chapter. I like an easy read. It always shows its hand, you know. It's like, this is the way that the chapter goes, and we're going to just have 2 extra guys that saved the day real quick. And then, Israelites started being bad again. You know, tale as old as time. What did I loathe about the chapter? Just the uselessness of it. Who cares that they're doing it again? So yeah, what I loved and loathed are the same thing. Is it's boring and useless, but it's short, so it's fine. So, but maybe, you know, the next chapter will, tell the story that this is leading up to. This is the foreshadowing for something. So maybe that's all that's happening. It's just like, we get it already. Just be a little bit more creative. Please, Bible. Anyway, thanks for joining me. We'll see you in the next one, which is going to be the recap. And then we'll get to chapter 11, which is probably going to be the follow-up of this chapter. But until then, subscribe, like the video, leave a comment, and we'll see you in the next one. Toodles.